Good evening and welcome to the Oxnard Police Department conversation on traffic safety live here on YouTube. Of course, we invite you to join the conversation with us. Join the conversation with us. As I'm looping, and I'll make sure I stop that. Join the conversation as I just tried to join myself in the conversation, but in the live chat. As you have any questions or comments throughout the evening, go ahead and drop them in there. We'll be keeping an eye on those. But we just wanted to have a community roundtable with you virtually here this evening regarding the topic of traffic safety. And specifically because May is National Bicycle Month. It's also National Bicycle Safety Month. And so we do want to talk about bicycle safety and how important it is. And of course, give you any tips you might need to keep yourself safe out there as you're riding your bikes. But we also do want to discuss traffic safety in general. And I've got some friends here to have this conversation with you and I here virtually. Please join me in welcoming several members of our Oxnard Police Department Traffic Unit. I know they're hiding in the wings, but we've got with us Sergeant Michael Jens. He's the sergeant that supervises the traffic unit. And with him, we've got officers Jason Coleman, Raul Camacho, and Joey Clark with us this evening. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello, Paul.
Thank you so much for agreeing to stay a little bit late today and have this conversation. It is so important, and especially as we've seen recently, several fatal traffic collisions involving bicyclists and pedestrians. And it is a conversation that we need to continue always, not just during Bicycle Safety Month, but it is a big problem here in the city of Oxnard.
Yes, sir. First of all, thanks for having us. And it's our pleasure to stay late and talk to our community members about National Bicycle Safety Month. It's a chance for us to remind people to drive safely, ride safely, walk safely, and to encourage everybody that, hey, it's a shared responsibility. We all want to get to where we're going safely. So we hope that everybody, not just the bicyclists, not just the pedestrians, but the drivers as well, can take their time, pay attention, and get to where they're going safely. So again, thanks for having us, and I'll pass it back to you.
Now, I am so I'm excited to have this conversation in this different kind of forum because, when we post all the time your press releases on our social media, we put them out through the media as much as we can, but it's not exactly clickbait. Somebody doesn't see news release, it's Bicycle Safety Month, and then they want to stop and read everything. So it is a good opportunity to just talk about it and just pull some words off the page and bring them to life. It says in your most recent National Bicycle Safety Month news release, there's this stat that says, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, there were 1,105 people killed while riding a bike in 2022. Of course, stats take a couple years to process and actually get gathered and released. And an estimated 46,195 bicyclists were injured. The previous year, in 2021, 976 bicyclists were killed. And an estimated 41,615 were injured in that year. And it seems like such a preventable thing, but yet these numbers are so high. How can we help to reduce these numbers here in Oxnard?
Roll.
Oh, well, number one is that we have to accept the fact that both driving, walking, and riding a bicycle is a shared responsibility for everybody to keep us safe. We want to make sure as we're riding a bike, we are paying attention to everything around us, our surroundings, following all traffic laws, as well as when we're walking in the streets and crossing streets, making sure it's safe to walk both ways. And then, of course, driving. We have our driving laws in place to keep pedestrians and bicyclists safe.
What is it that you, while you're out there, actually, this is a great opportunity while we have you here for anybody out there who just thinks of police officers as, people that drive around and give people tickets. That's not the sole focus of the traffic unit. Obviously, it's not our goal to just set out and write as many tickets as we can. Can you touch on the many functions and the purpose of our traffic unit and maybe how it's comprised and how many officers and what you guys do day to day, week to week?
Sure. So our traffic unit oversees all things traffic, but that also includes everything from parking enforcement to education. We go out to schools, we go out to neighborhood council meetings, we go out to other special events where we share some ideas and some strategies about keeping everybody safe. We've participated in bicycle safety events where we've handed out helmets. So there's some education components to it. We work with the city traffic engineer's office when maybe somebody, a member of the community suggests that, hey, maybe we should look at the speed limit. Maybe we should look at a traffic light being placed here or a stop sign being placed there. So we work with the traffic engineering department on a regular basis. And then lastly, yes, it's true. We do go out, we ride our motorcycles, and we're looking for some enforcement to remind people, hey, you got to drop your phone while you're driving. You got to obey the speed limit. That extends to people on bicycles. The vehicle code requires that you follow the rules of the road, just like any other motorist. You got to stop at the stop sign. You got to stop at the red light. You got to ride with the flow of traffic. So we have many different responsibilities in the traffic unit. And unfortunately, as you mentioned, there are a lot of fatalities, and every one of these officers here, including myself here tonight, take part in investigating those traffic collisions. Raul, do you have anything to add to that?
I think you hit it right on the
Right on.
I will add to that if you want, if you like.
Of course, Officer Coleman.
The motor unit or the officer traffic unit is made up of 10 motor positions, which includes the 2 sergeants, 2 corporals, both of which one is the traffic coordinator who does all of our special event planning and helps coordinate all of the events that we work, the traffic enforcement events. We also have a corporal who is our traffic collision investigator. The rest of the motors are out for enforcement, and we also help any way we can. So when we have a collision that involves multifaceted investigation, all of the motors take a piece of the pie and help out with the investigation, because they're complicated and they have a lot of moving parts and require a lot of teamwork to get these things done.
I really appreciate you guys because, in my role as the community affairs manager, I need a lot of support from the traffic unit, and you guys always come through. I work most closely, I think, with the neighborhood policing team and the traffic unit. And so I appreciate the work that you guys all do and all the ways you support, not just me, but everyone who lives here in the community. Now, Sergeant Jens touched on it, but let's take a look, if we can, for just a second at the statistics of fatalities here in Oxnard. It looks like we had a better year last year, but this is something that we continue the conversation about as much as we can, because it is always something that needs a sharper focus on when you look at these numbers. And I think the staggering one, when I tell people is, or whenever these stats come up, is how few compared, sometimes are involving two vehicles. A lot of times it's bicycles and pedestrians that get caught up in it. Sergeant Jens, do you want to just touch on this graphic here?
Yeah, sure. So this is a total number, and it's also broken down of fatal traffic collisions since 2021. Of course, it kind of goes up and down, with 2022 being a very rough year in the city of Oxnard. A lot of people don't know or may not realize that 17 people were killed in traffic collisions that year alone. What's very unfortunate as well is a lot of these, as you mentioned, are pedestrians who get hit, as well as bicyclists who get hit. What people need to understand, not just motorists, but also the bicyclists and pedestrians, is when you're out walking, when you're out riding a bicycle and you're involved in a traffic collision, especially with another vehicle, you're not going to win. You're going to be on the losing end of that traffic collision. So we really need people to pay attention, not drive distracted, not drive impaired, And again, we can't stress it enough, if you're riding a bicycle or you're walking, just make sure you're following the rules of the road, that you're crossing safely at crosswalks, things like that. We want to try to mitigate the amount of these collisions that happen every year, and especially injury and fatal collisions. It's tough for us to go out to these scenes, but it's even tougher for the family when they got to deal with this, especially when a lot of these people are just trying to get somewhere, work, church, school, and they end up in a collision. So we can't stress enough the importance of being aware and being safe while you're driving, walking, or biking to your destination.
And a big shout out and thanks to everyone out there who is streaming us live on YouTube. Of course, this video will be up after we're wrapped with the live session. Feel free to share this with anybody. If you're a teacher, share it with your classroom. If you know a teacher, if you know, send it to your kid's teacher. We need to get this message out, how important it is to always pay attention and think with safety first, whether you're a driver of a vehicle, bicyclist, or a pedestrian. As we've said several times, and I'm sure we will again, traffic safety is, of course, a shared responsibility between everyone in the community. Now, speaking of the YouTube, our live chat is open. If you have any questions for us or comments you want to make, Elizabeth Gallner says, as a daily bike rider, there are too many bike riders riding against traffic. It's dangerous to have a fellow rider heading straight toward me as we share the bike lane. That's a great segue, I think, to some just basic, valuable bicycle safety tips. And maybe we can touch on a few of the rules or guidelines in the California Vehicle Code. Anybody want to comment on this graphic?
Yeah, so this is pulled right off the California Office of Traffic Safety website. This is not top secret information. Any one of you can go on right now to the website and get quick facts about traffic collisions. You could also get all kinds of safety tips like this right here. What we're looking for, and part of National Bicycle Safety Month, is it starts at home. So wear a helmet, whether you're an adult or a child. I know the vehicle code says if you're over 18, you don't need to wear a helmet. You can do whatever you like, but we encourage you to wear a helmet. The vehicle code again states that all bicyclists need to follow the rules of the road. So you stop at stop signs, you make legal turns, you stop at the red lights. You can even be distracted while you're riding your bicycle. So we encourage you to put your phone away, turn your music down, and pay attention to your surroundings. Make sure you're riding a bicycle that is safe and operational. There's a lot of people out riding bicycles with no brakes, no reflectors, headlights at night, which are all required per the vehicle code. And lastly on this is ride in the same direction of traffic. You're more likely to be seen by vehicles entering the roadway if they're looking for those other vehicles coming in the same direction. So make yourself visible, ride with traffic so that the people entering the road, making turns, are more likely to see you coming.
And those are some very basic tips, but are there any other rules or guidelines that are specific to the city of Oxnard?
Joey or Jason, want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'll add to that.
Sure.
It's okay if you're a kid and you're under the age of 12 or 12 or under to ride a bicycle on a sidewalk. That being said, it's still important to pay attention to driveways and other things when you're approaching a roadway where a car might cross your path, because that car might not see you. They're responsible to look for you, but especially if it's dark and they're looking specifically for traffic, they may not see you. So I always say, try to make eye contact with the person that's in the car. And if they see you, then you see them, and hopefully there's an understanding and a collision won't happen. But at least you're safer. You're off the roadway if you're 12 or younger. Anyone over the age of 12 has to follow the rules of the road and be on the roadway in the same direction of traffic. And just be visible. I would say wear bright clothing, reflective clothing, anything to draw a driver's attention to your bicycle, because you're not very big, and a vehicle is probably paying more attention to other large vehicles on the roadway and is less likely to notice a smaller item like a bicycle or a scooter or somebody who's on foot.
And is there what is the rule on, or the law, I don't know, on having lights on your bike when it's nighttime?
So at night, all bicyclists are required to have forward-facing lighting equipment as well as rear-facing lighting equipment. So they should have a white light in the front of their bicycle illuminating. I believe it's 300 feet, as well as there's some requirements for the rear, as well as like reflectors and those types of things. But anything, like Officer Coleman said, like anything you can do to make it safer and brighter and people can see you is obviously the better option. I see people wearing reflective vests, especially at night. It's a huge help. It catches the driver's attention. But going back to riding on the right side of the road, I think is a huge thing. And bicycles belong in the roadway and not on the sidewalks.
Very good. And as Elizabeth just commented, we see too many people riding the wrong way. Visibility, huge, of course. I try and use that, as you guys know, because I'm always out around the station, but I go on walks on my lunch break, and every intersection, I make sure if there's a car coming, we make eye contact and he knows I'm there, because it is just so important to have that acknowledgement. And of course, we're sharing the responsibility. I'm as the pedestrian and he's the driver. I want to make sure we're connected here. And that's what we really need to focus on. And speaking of being a pedestrian, or you're out for a walk, what are some good safety tips to keep in mind?
So first and foremost, always keep your eyes up as you're coming up to driveways, people turning into different driveways and coming out. You want to be aware of them coming in because they may not see you. So like as we harped on today already, it is a shared responsibility, and it's ultimately on us to make sure that we're safe along with the other people. Prior to you crossing the street, it's very important that you look left, you look right, and you look left once more, just to make sure that there's not an additional vehicle that's speeding down the roadway that might not have seen you, and it's ultimately going to keep you safe as you walk through that roadway. You always want to stay on the sidewalks. I know sometimes here in the city of Oxnard, the sidewalks may be congested with people or sometimes bicyclists. However, share the sidewalk. Make sure we're all safe as we're getting through the city. You want to wear bright colored clothing or reflective gear when you're walking at night. That's going to allow other bicyclists or other vehicles to see you as their lights are reflecting off of you. You want to make eye contact with drivers before crossing the street. As Paul had mentioned earlier, that's one of the things that we can keep ourselves safe on, to confirm that it's safe to cross the street. And you don't not want to run or dart into the street across between parked cars. Those parked cars are pretty much blinders to a lot of vehicles that are traveling on a roadway. Smaller statured people are going to have a hard time to see them as they are crossing the street, because they're hidden behind those parked cars, and a vehicle may not be able to see you, or even a bicyclist may not be able to see you as you're crossing that street, and it may cause an accident.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's a really big danger or caution around school zones, right?
Absolutely.
Speaking of schools, what are the different or the special circumstances, the special rules or guidelines or laws around driving around the school?
So as most people know, school zones are 25-mile-an-hour speed limits. That's generally when school or children are present. So most oftentimes that's going to be your school drop off in the morning, your school pickup in the afternoon, and sometimes during the lunch hour when people, or especially high school students, get maybe a early dismissal or lunch break dismissal. So we encourage everybody to go the speed limit, 25 miles per hour, especially in some of these areas where the speed limit is significantly higher when it's not a school zone. For example, Gonzales Road in front of Pacifica High School, that's a 45-mile-an-hour zone, but it drops quickly down to 25 during those school zones. So we encourage everyone to pay attention to that. Also, we get a lot of complaints about people driving and parking on the side of the road in and or blocking traffic to drop off their student. We highly encourage people to use the drop-off locations that their school has created. We work well with most of our schools here in Oxnard to help facilitate that. However, we do get a lot of those violators, and it's super unsafe for you to stop block traffic while your teenage or juvenile student is getting out of the back seat or the passenger seat. It's unsafe for you. It's unsafe for your student. So we encourage you not to do that. Anything else?
No, just when we're dropping off our kids, it's very important that you drop them off on the curb and you're stopped in a non-bus zone area so the bus can arrive and the kids can get off safely as well. So they're not being let off in the middle of the street.
I'll add to that too.
Go for it.
The areas around the really busy high schools, especially not eliminating elementary and middle schools, but the high schools, specifically Oxnard High School, Pacifica High School, Hueneme High School, experience a massive increase in traffic during drop off and pickup times. We'll see 10 or 15 minute time frames in the morning and afternoons where the traffic will expand to triple or quadruple the amount of normal traffic. And all these people, most of these people are there to pick up their sons and daughters, and they're looking for their kid on the sidewalk, or they're maybe not so focused on things that are, peripheral to them picking their kids up. So they may not be focused on a bicyclist or a pedestrian other than the kids that they're looking for. So that's definitely a time to be heightened alert. If you're riding your bicycle or you're on foot around schools, because you've got so many more people out and about and so many more cars, and these drivers are distracted by what they're looking for. So you got to be extra careful so we don't have mishaps.
Also in and around the schools, we have the school crossing guards. So please pay attention to them. There are special rules that are governed for crossing guards. So the big ones are, as soon as they step off the curb and they lift that sign, they control that crosswalk or that intersection. So you must stop and wait until that crossing guard gets completely to the other side of the street and puts the sign down. So it's separate and different than a regular pedestrian that's crossing at a crosswalk. Whereas if you don't interfere with the pedestrian that's walking, there's no violation. However, if there's a crossing guard that's crossing the students and you do cross while that stop sign is up, that is quite the violation and fine. So we don't want to see that. It's also obviously very dangerous. Also around the schools, we have the school buses. We see the flashing red lights. Big one on that one is you got to stop and you got to wait for that bus to turn off its red flashing lights, as well as that stop sign that pops out on the side of the bus. Those are it's very dangerous. Obviously, sometimes the school bus, the students that are exiting the school bus will cross across the street, and that's the time for them to do that is when that school bus has its red lights flashing and the stop sign is out. So they're controlling the intersection just like a crossing guard.
Now, a lot of times when I post anything traffic or school, specifically school traffic related, you get the comments from the community members. Oh, you need to come to this school at this time and this school at this time. And can you explain what kind of focus the unit puts on schools? How often do you go out? Like, how do you choose where to focus and when?
Yeah, so for the majority of every single day, we try to go out to the schools in the morning for drop-offs. There's multiple officers that we have in our unit, and we'll coordinate which school we're going to for that day. A lot of the times we'll start off with an elementary school because they have a little bit earlier of a drop-off time than the high schools. And then after that, we'll migrate to a high school where we'll educate and enforce anything that we need to in the area.
And sticking kind of on the subject of young people, we actually had to have one of these. I think it's the last time we had it when these virtual roundtables for traffic, back when the large groups of riders was a real issue and was causing a lot of safety hazards. Is that continuing? Has that gotten better?
It's gotten significantly better. We haven't had large organized disruptions in traffic with these riders. They're still out there. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of vehicle code violations that are being involved, but that has significantly reduced compared to where we were.
What can you attribute that to? How are we able to reduce that number?
We did a lot of education. We did a lot of enforcement. People don't know, and it's not top secret, but we issued a lot of citations, and we gave they were mostly juveniles. We gave them citations for various code violations, and allowed them to bring their parent to the police station, where we watched a video. We talked about the dangers of some of the riding behavior we saw, and we dismissed that traffic citation for them. That was successful. We got a lot of positive feedback from some of the parents who did not know their child was riding this way. I think maybe that had a little bit to do with it. There may be a whole host of other reasons why that has declined, but they're still out there. We still want drivers and motorists to be on the lookout for some of that riding behavior, but we are happy to see it decrease, and we hope that continues.
Great job. Yeah. Kudos to you guys for getting a good handle on that. Knock on wood here. But as technology gets better and recreational vehicles get souped up, we're seeing more e-bikes on the road. Do electric bikes have different a set of rules or guidelines?
So they do. We field a lot of these questions regarding electric bicycles. Uh, it can be very complicated or cumbersome to know the difference between each of these. But a true electric bike is going to have, or it's going to follow some of these bullet points that are listed on the screen there. You're going to have pedals, which can be assisted by the electric motor. You're going to be under 750 watts. So if you're riding an electric bicycle, for the most part, you are going to follow the same laws as a person riding a bicycle. There are some exceptions. You can see highlighted in yellow. You have to be 16 years of age to operate a class 3 e-bike, which is something that's pedal assisted, but can reach a speed of 28 miles per hour. There are some rules you should pay attention to. A lot of these electric bicycles are going to have stickers or labels on them indicating their size, and you should make sure you don't tamper with them. There are ways of tampering to change their wattage, etc. But we encourage you to follow the rules of the road when you're riding e-bikes.
And we recently had our community academy here that I had the pleasure of hosting. And while the traffic unit was teaching their session, there was mention, it was the first time I had heard of pocket bikes. What is this pocket bike phenomenon?
So I'll start briefly on this. So while we're seeing a reduction in like large organized unsafe bicycle rides, we are seeing an increase in pocket bikes. And these are essentially a mini motorcycle that are not legal whatsoever on a roadway, on a sidewalk, on a bike path. It is essentially used for, I guess it'd be private property. So these are mini motorcycles. You can get them everywhere, including on Amazon. They have an engine that you could buy at places like Harbor Freight. They meet the definition of a motor-driven cycle. If you were to get a device like this registered, you would have to have a motorcycle license, which many of these people operating these things do not have a motorcycle license. They do not register it. So essentially, these pocket bikes are something that the DMV will not register. You cannot get them insured. You cannot get a license to ride them. So they do not belong on the street. Unfortunately, when you're riding these things around, you are not visible. You're lower to the ground. The speeds, they can get, reach really high speeds, and they are just super unsafe. Most of them don't have brakes, sliding equipment, or any other equipment that would make them roadworthy.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine. First of all, I think I would hurt my knees. But second of all, like I can't imagine just driving around and knowing that the drivers around me can't see me. Maybe I'm just too old to find a thrill there. Thank you again to everybody who is joining us live on YouTube, and we're here to answer any questions you may have. We just discussed a variety of traffic safety topics, and if you have any follow-up questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll go through some of these questions and comments that have come in already. I want to say hello to Carlos Lopez, who jumped in and said hi. He says, kudos to traffic for being out here when called out for an investigation in the middle of the night. Can't imagine having to get up in the middle of the night for a long hours investigation. And not only is it long hours, but I mean, you have to see some pretty horrific stuff. And when you, how do you get used to that? Or like, or do you?
Joey, Officer Clark, can you talk to us about some of our investigations? Joey, huge shout out. He's a reconstructionist, so he's pretty good, well trained at handling these things, and he could walk us through what an investigation would look like and some of the unfortunate things we see.
And he is also, if I may mention, a member of our peer support team. So as we talk about seeing gruesome things on the job, that is also something he's able to connect with people and totally understand on that level. But kudos to you, Joey, and can you tell us all about it?
So as you mentioned, obviously we respond to traffic collisions. The major traffic collisions that we respond to are the fatals or near fatal accidents. I mean, they're pretty extensive and intensive investigations. You mentioned how gory they can be. I don't think we can get used to it. I think we've seen a lot of them. I'll never get over them because I mean, it's not something you want to see, and it's something that you have to live through. There's a lot of components to these traffic collisions. We have obviously the drivers that are involved. We're evaluating them for impairment. We're trying to figure out what caused the collision, whether it's vehicle related, whether it's something that they're inattention, they were looking at their cell phone, maybe it's their intoxication. All those things become a factor when we're looking into these investigations. As part of the reconstruction, we work with a lot of mathematics to dissect these traffic collisions using some of the equipment that the vehicles have, like the quote black boxes that vehicles have on them, which record information that we can use, as well as some of like the crush, meaning the intrusion that we get on vehicles. Based on that intrusion and those specifics from those manufacturers, we can determine the amount of velocity or change in velocity that would occur to cause that damage to occur. We also have obviously a lot of cameras out there in the city, whether they're city cameras or personal cameras. All those come into play. We use those as well for determining speed as an associated as part of our investigation. I mean, some of these traffic collisions are merely accidents or traffic, crashes that, it's sad and unfortunate that they happen, but there are many out there that are definitely preventable. You mentioned about bicyclists riding on the right side of the road. That's a big one. Pedestrians being on the sidewalks invisible and not crossing when they're not supposed to cross. All those become huge factors, especially at night when visibility is tough as it is, let alone having somebody without having lights on their bike, or being reflective or having something that's visible to them on the sidewalk.
I'm going to add to that. It's important to understand, if you're on a bike or you're a pedestrian, that all of the collisions listed in our city that have resulted in a serious injury or death were a vehicle versus either a pedestrian or a bicycle. And imagine yourself as a motorist and you're behind the wheel. There's a lot of distractions in a car. That's not taking away the responsibility that the driver has to pay attention, but you're surrounded by glass. A lot of times it's tinted, oftentimes illegally tinted. A and B pillars, the big pillars that support the roof of the car, they're blind spots. Bigger now than ever before because cars and SUVs have never been safer, which means they have big A, B, C pillars that protect the occupants of the vehicle in the event of a front or side or rollover crash. Those things, while making the vehicle safer, have also made them more difficult to look out of. If you get into a car from the 80s or 90s, it's a lot easier to see out of the windows than in a modern vehicle. There's a lot more material between the driver and what they could crash into, and that makes things outside the vehicle much less visible. So if you are riding a bike or on foot at night and you are not hugely visible with all of the other distractions in a car, including the blind spots in the vehicle and a cell phone and a radio and navigation screen and all the other modern conveniences we expect to find in a modern vehicle, you are putting yourself at a big disadvantage if you are not riding in a way that makes you visible to the driver, or if you're putting yourself in a position where a driver shouldn't be able to see you. If you're riding on the wrong side of the road and a driver is going to make a right turn, and you're on the wrong side of the road, the driver may not expect to see you there because a bicycle shouldn't be there. And if they don't see you and the collision happens, it may be the driver's fault, but it's still a tragedy regardless. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about being safe and getting to where you want to go in one piece.
Sharing the responsibility.
Sharing the responsibility.
And that's such an interesting point. I never thought about that. My first car was a 1969 Volkswagen Beetle. And it was like you were driving and there was just a pane of glass right in front of your face, and not very protected, of course. But
You
now
sure could see well.
yeah, that's right. What was Officer Coleman? What was your first car?
My first car was a Volkswagen Scirocco in 1979.
Scirocco. I'm gonna have to Google that. I can't even picture
It was like
what
a
that
little
looks
sporty thing. It was pretty cool. It wasn't very fast, but it was pretty cool.
Officer Clark?
It was a Ford Mustang, 87-ish Ford Mustang.
Nice. Camacho.
At a 2001 Honda Civic LX.
He's young. He's young, guys. Sergeant Jens.
1985 Chevy IROC Camaro.
Whoa.
What color?
I
Wow.
behaved myself.
Obviously some vehicle lovers here, but that kind of segues to a question that Comics, that's their YouTube handle, has as what made you all want to join the traffic unit? We'll just go in that same order. Jason.
I love being out on the motorcycle. I love the interaction that I have with the public. Even something as negative as a traffic stop because of a violation can result in someone learning a valuable lesson. And it's almost always a positive experience. I think I have a personality for it, and the people I interact with may not appreciate the fact that they got a citation for going too fast, but I always get a thank you or have a good day or something positive. There's always a smile at the end of the traffic stop.
As Officer Dan Cassie's on our homeless liaison unit likes to say, you go out and you make friends, right?
Right.
Joey.
Well, I enjoy being on a motorcycle. It's a lot of fun to be out there on a motorcycle. It's a thrill for sure. But like Officer Coleman said, interacting with the community is huge. We deal a lot with the schools and students. I like to visit them and talk to them about school safety. But we're also available to assist patrol. I think we're sometimes quicker and faster to get to incidents and help. During school incidents or any other quote like hot calls, we can get there a lot quicker. We can split traffic and get there safely and try to diffuse the situation. Also with traffic, I mean, there's so many avenues and aspects that go on with where these investigations take us and lead us, whether they're simple traffic collisions or we're talking about vehicular homicide. So that's the realm of what we deal with, and so I enjoy the intricacies of the investigations.
And you never have to take anyone to jail, right?
Not on the motorcycle.
Raul.
So I also like riding a motorcycle. However, like one of the biggest things that brought me into the traffic unit is the different sides of this job that you get to actually do. We do a lot of community service and community engagement, a lot of education to kids, adults. We're all over the place and doing things like this as well. So I like that part of it. Also like getting investigation experience with it. We do a lot of investigations, as Officer Clark mentioned earlier. And it's a lot of moving wheels and being part of a small team as a traffic unit. It's really uplifting for yourself. along with everybody else. I also joined the unit because everybody's susceptible to traffic issues, right? We all drive every single day. We are all susceptible to dangerous drivers, to everybody around you. I have a lot of family and friends that lived here. I live here still. I grew up here. It's I feel that I'm helping keep them safe and everybody else safe by being in this position that I am right now.
Sergeant Jens.
All right, so we pretty much have the best weather in the world. So I love to ride the motorcycle on a nice, warm, but not too hot day. I like the wind just hitting my face, kind of going through my mustache, kind of being out there riding around. It riding the motorcycle, you get behind some vehicles, and because when a police officer is behind you, your blood pressure goes up a little bit. You get a little nervous. I don't like to be that person, but it's part of the job. As Raul mentioned, traffic affects everybody. I like to take impaired drivers off the road. That's one of my passions. DUI drivers affect so many. If you make a mistake, hopefully you learn for it and you don't do it again. Unfortunately, a lot of our DUI drivers are repeat offenders, and I just have a passion for taking them off the road before they hurt somebody. If anyone out there ever has a chance to interact with Mothers Against Drunk Driving and you hear some of the stories, it is brutal. People are just torn apart by drunk drivers. Police officers aren't exempt. Police officers have been taken out by impaired drivers. Everybody can be affected by impaired drivers. So that is my passion, although I'll do anything that is traffic related, as that's our job. My favorite is taking drunk drivers off the road.
Yeah, you mentioned even police officers. We have our annual memorial next Wednesday, and one of our former Oxnard PD officers that lost his life in the line of duty was conducting traffic. How do you say that? Directing traffic, directing or conducting. It's all musical, right? And was struck by a impaired driver. Very, very, very sad. But you mentioned some of the great things you get to do. One of my kids' favorite memories to date was last year's air show. You guys got to run a detail there. And so like whenever there's special events where they need support, we're always turning to the traffic unit because you guys come through and are awesome. All right. I don't know how many questions we have left, but we do have some comments. I'll just read them. And if you guys want to comment on them, we can do that.
Okay.
Elizabeth wants to know why are there so many vehicles without front license plates? I guess, is that legal or is that against the code?
So there's a vehicle code that you need to have your front license plate mounted to your vehicle here in California. Some people leave them off because maybe they don't want to drill holes in their vehicle, or their vehicle may look better without it on. However, there is a vehicle code that makes you place that license plate on the front of your vehicle.
And in the same thought, she says, so many vehicles have tinted windows.
I'll address that. Yes, it's rampant. It's more prevalent now than I think I've ever seen in my career. And I've been at Oxnard PD for 20 years. What we're seeing more now is surprisingly is tinted windshields. Because there are so many dark, tinted side windows, it sort of blends in with the background. So it's pretty rare that I will seek out and make a stop on a vehicle with dark side windows, but I absolutely will stop a vehicle with a front tinted windshield, because it's like wearing dark sunglasses at night. During the day, you can get away with it, but as soon as it starts getting dark, your light transmission through a dark tinted windshield is just like wearing dark sunglasses. Your visibility is dramatically reduced, and what you can see is dramatically reduced, which is affecting the safety of the driver, but just as importantly, the safety of everyone else around. So I will absolutely write those citations. And unfortunately, when you get a citation for the windshield, you also, sorry, we just lost our light. You also have to remove the front side window tint. So keep in mind that although your citation says remove the front tint, it also will not be signed off until the front side window tint's removed. So it's better to just not have that front window tint, the windshield tint. The side window tint is not legal either, and it's sort of up to the officer's discretion if they want to stop you and write you a citation for the side windows. The darker it is, the more likely it is to be very obvious, and you can get stopped and get a citation. Generally, it's going to be a fix-it ticket, but it can also be considered an unsafe vehicle. So if it's been multiple violations for the same thing, you can actually get a very difficult to correct and expensive citation for having an unsafe vehicle.
Instead of paying that citation, go ahead and spend that money on a nice pair of sunglasses instead. And Elizabeth's third and final point or statement is vehicles passing vehicles that are turning on C Street. They use the bike lane. And all right, Daniel M wants to know, what do you guys do when you pull someone over driving with no license?
Ooh. So obviously in California and most other states, you have to have a valid license to operate a vehicle. That license has to have an endorsement if you're riding maybe a motorcycle, if you're driving a certain large vehicle. So generally speaking, you're most likely going to get issued a citation for Vehicle Code Section 12500A. And that's for being an unlicensed driver. Our courts are fair with you. If you get it corrected before you show up to court, generally speaking, and I'm not giving legal advice or making any promises, but oftentimes the judge or commissioner will dismiss that with the correctable fee. In some cases, your vehicle can be towed. Some people are under the impression of, hey, you can't tow our vehicle anymore. That's not always the case. Your vehicle can absolutely be towed if you're an unlicensed driver. So generally speaking, for an unlicensed driver, we're most likely just going to issue a citation, which can be correctable, and would send you on your way, maybe have a licensed driver pick up your vehicle, or if you're legally parked, leave it there if you're willing to do that.
Very good. That response was getting a lot of hearts and happy faces in the live chat. Interesting. 12 Degree Snowman says, I take South Oxnard Boulevard from Woolley to Oxnard College every day, and it is the most dangerous, especially when on the rightmost lane. I don't know if they're a bicyclist or they're in a vehicle, but 12 Degree wanted to make that comment. Martin Greg Beckner has a great question. How many traffic officers are on each shift?
So this is kind of secret. We don't want to give that information out.
Oh, okay.
No, there are 12 traffic officers, including the 2 sergeants. So at any time, there can be upwards of 8 or 10 out there. We do have a lot of special details like DUI saturations, DUI checkpoints, distracted driver operations where we're looking for cell phone violations, general traffic enforcement where we're looking for speed or anything else that is dangerous. And you could have maybe 6 officers conducting enforcement just for that detail itself. But yeah, we have 12 total motor officers.
I'll add something to that. One of the details we do that is more fun than enforcement is know your limit. Where we will, motor officers will go out in uniform, but we'll bring intoxilizers with us. We'll go to local establishments that dispense alcoholic beverages and ask for volunteers who want to provide a breath sample just to see where they are in terms of intoxication. It's just for fun and to let people kind of know where they are. A lot of people think that they're okay to drive, and then they'll provide a sample and we'll let them know that they're actually over the legal limit. Which is a surprise to some people. And there's other people who have had a drink who don't think who think they're actually very intoxicated, who end up being significantly under the legal limit, but they're smart enough to know if they feel something to not get behind the wheel. So it's a lot of fun. There's no, penalties. It's just us basically, trying to, interact with the public and give them an idea of where they might be if they've never experienced an actual breath test. So that's actually kind of a fun thing we do. And it's good education.
Yeah, that's cool. 12-degree snowman just totally read my mind because as we came to the end of the list of questions here, I was going to present you one that I see on Facebook all the time as I do run the department social media, not only Facebook, but Instagram as well. There are Facebook pages and groups where people will announce your checkpoints. And the question that I get often is, why do you announce when you're going to do one? What is the purpose of announcing when you're doing checkpoints, and how do you feel about these Facebook groups?
So the purpose of the checkpoints is mostly for education. It's also a requirement that we post and provide the public with the information that a checkpoint is upcoming. But in doing so, we're educating the public and letting them know that we'll be out there. Along with these checkpoints, we're also doing saturations, which means that we're not only at the checkpoints, but we're also saturating the city, looking for impaired drivers. So it's no secret. We don't want it to be a secret. We want people to use, ride shares or walk or whatever, is safe, and not to get behind the wheel while they're either drinking or using drugs. And drugs can be medications, drugs can be marijuana, drugs can be hardcore street drugs. Any of those things can get you a DUI.
Yeah, to add on to that, the news releases and everything that we do prior to these checkpoints is used as a deterrence, basically to let the public know that we're going to be out here looking for that type of thing the impaired drivers going through, and hopefully it gives them a second chance to think their plans out for the night, to get that ride share, to walk, or get a responsible driver to take them home rather than drive and run into someone they don't want to.
And lastly, there's a law that requires us to give advance notice that we're going to do a DUI checkpoint. So if you enter a DUI checkpoint, try not to be upset with us. We follow the laws that we're required to follow with the proper signage, the press releases, the lighting, the uniforms, everything that's required by law to conduct a legal DUI and license checkpoint. We follow and then some. So bear with us. We'll try to get you through that checkpoint. As long as you're not impaired or unlicensed, we'll try to get you through that checkpoint as quickly as possible.
Of course, it is always great news to read in the news releases that you got X amount of drunk drivers off the street with the checkpoint. But our goal in having these checkpoints is to eventually find 0 drunk
Correct.
drivers. All right, this last question was going to transition into the last point I was going to make, but there's a user in the YouTube chat named Shane Schwartz, and he asks, when's the next opening for motor officers? asking for a friend.
Sergeant?
Oh, I don't know. We'll just have to see here in the next couple months. There's maybe some movement going on. So, hey, Shane, be patient, man. And in the meantime, keep hitting those areas that we get a lot of traffic collisions, and be highly visible and write a ticket or two, and we'll keep you in our thoughts.
Real quickly, as we're running out of time here, a question just came in about the shroud on your badge, Sarge. Why do some officers wear that?
So we wear these anytime an officer loses their life in the line of duty. This most recent one was an LA County deputy who died as a result of a training accident. So it will come off when he's laid to rest. But yeah, whenever you see an officer wearing that, it's because an officer has lost their life.
And swinging on back to the motor officer openings point. Officer openings in general. If a career in law enforcement has ever interested you, the Oxnard Police Department is hiring. Of course, there are, you can't just get hired and join the motor unit. You have to do some patrol ahead of time, as some people in the chat probably know. But we're hiring. Go to join oxnardpd.com to check out all of the list of positions that we're hiring for. I want to say thank you to our traffic unit all the officers you see on the screen and the rest of them who are not here this evening, for all the work you do, everything you do to protect our community and try and keep us safe. Just remember, ladies and gentlemen, it is Bicycle Safety Month, but just because we're focusing on it this month, this is an everyday thing. Pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, driver safety, traffic safety is something that we all, a responsibility that we all share, and something we need to focus on each and every day, every time we get behind the wheel, every time we get on a bike, every time we're walking down the sidewalk on our lunch break. We need to keep this in the front of our mind at all times. As we know, Oxnard is a tough place to travel through and commute. And anytime we're driving unsafe or there is an accident, of course, that makes things worse. But obviously, the number one thing is people's safety and the safety of our community, our students, our neighbors, and our friends and our family. And we thank you all. Thank you all again for joining us in the live chat. If you've found anything in here valuable and you think that you know a group of people or a person that needs to hear this information, please feel free to share the link. While we were recording this live, the video will stay on our YouTube channel in perpetuity. So feel free to share it with any groups, any people that you think will find value in this. And we value you and your time. So we just wanted to say thank you one more time and good night, Oxnard. Stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Good night.
Everybody, good night.
Thank you.